What's going on, Dark Souls freaks? Here I am in the final stretch of my Dark Souls walkthrough. Today I'll be entering the beginning of the DLC. And, DLC is always a funny thing with games. Sometimes it messes up the balance of a game. Sometimes it doesn't seem to match the rest of the game. I feel like with Dark Souls 1, the DLC is a classic example of a DLC done right. It introduces a few new spells, a few new zones, and it's kind of a self-contained little world that is almost a little miniature game unto itself. Is it even remotely as vast and complex as Dark Souls 1? Absolutely not. But it has its own lore, it's got its own bosses. It's just, I don't know, I feel like they just absolutely knocked it out of the park. When Dark Souls 2, the DLC, each one of those zones taken unto itself is like a little miniature masterpiece of level design. But they don't really have anything connecting them, and they're definitely not interlocking or interwoven in terms of their design. So if it were coming down to a vote between which DLC was more effective at what it says to do, check this out. I gotta interrupt myself. This is how you start a DLC. You walk up to a portal, you touch it, like, what's going on? And this big hand of death comes out and grabs you and yanks you back in time to a horrible place that's just going to try and kill you. I mean, that's how you start a DLC. That's dramatic storytelling. So yeah, anyway, Dark Souls 1 gets my vote for the better DLC. We shall find out soon how the Dark Souls 3 will turn out, because we're getting the first half of it on October 25th, which is right around the corner. And I'm very, very looking forward to it. It seems like people have been teasing out little Easter eggs from it and what it all means. But in the end, anything that keeps the Dark Souls community alive and invested and excited and debating, even if people are invested and talking shit, they're still invested. They're still playing. I feel like that's what gives a game new legs. So Sanctuary Gaurdian, the DLC just throws you right into the deep end of the pool, because it starts you off with one of the fastest bosses I've ever seen in Dark Souls. It's really, really hard to find your timing in terms of when you can heal. He also likes to poison you, he also likes to claw you. He has these really, really fast breath weapon attacks. Some of which I dodge pretty well. The big one, I do not. It's been so long since I fought this guy, I was totally caught off guard by how fast he is. He's dramatically faster than bosses in Dark Souls 1, which is awesome, because when you play a DLC, at that point, you've been essentially, if you're a regular player, you've exhausted the regular time. You want a challenge, so Dark Souls is like, fuck you, bitch. Here's a challenge: fight the Sanctuary Gaurdian. He's fast as shit. So yeah, this is me going through a brief adjustment here, just trying to figure out when can I heal. And I finally started to get my timing down. And once I get my timing down, I'm like, all right, now I can start attacking. So that's my advice with this guy: just come in and play defense for a bit, get used to when he jumps, get used to when he claws, and be okay with the idea of being poisoned. You don't need to have the rusted iron ring on. We are in water, but it is not necessary to have the rusted iron ring on in order to move. You can move just fine. After he does a big charge, see how much time he takes to kind of reset. That's a great moment to heal, great moment to attack. And so yeah, now it's time to go full offense. Look at my Crystal Soul Spear. Crystal Soul Spear is taking a third of his health. That spell is so especially with that intelligence 60 Logan's Catalyst. I almost got here because I started to get a little cocky when it's how much damage I was doing. But I heal up. Boom! Can't fuck with Crystal Soul Spear when it's at its full potential. But if you like that fight and you're not satisfied with just doing it once, if you try to walk out of the DLC instead of teleporting on the DLC, I didn't even recognize this until like the second time I was doing the DLC through. I just decided to walk back just to see what was back here. There are two of those motherfuckers. So if one of them wasn't hard enough for you, you can fight two at the exact same time, which I've actually never done. It would be interesting to see what drops, but I'm sure it's just an awesome soul farm. But yeah, if you're a badass Dark Souls player who needs the ultimate challenge, go fight two of those guys at the same time and tell me how it was, because I sure as hell don't want to do that. It doesn't seem like any kind of fun of any kind. So this little garden area has that one little item. I don't know why they made it so weird to navigate. I guess they're trying to make it kind of a mystery to find the NPC who's in here, but that big mushroom, he is the person you want to talk to. She's going to give you some crucial lore and all that good stuff, and kind of tell you what's going on. But the gist is, we're back in time to fight Manus. Manus is this big evil fucker who's in the abyss, and the abyss is kind of slowly spreading and growing. And anyone who's trying to fight resist the abyss or fight Manus is kind of getting corrupted or turned evil. Specifically, the knight Artorias, who's like the all-time great badass motherfucker of the past. He's using a lot of the concept art for promoting the game, and his sword is always popping up in different versions of the game. Knight Artorias is definitely one of the most important parts of Dark Souls lore. And what's cool is that he's very, very famous as a left-handed knight. And if you wield his sword left-handed in Dark Souls 2, it unlocks all of its special abilities, like these crazy flip attacks and things like that, which the boss uses in Dark Souls 1. So that was a really, really cool bit of connective tissue between Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, and his sword showed up with that special moveset. But what's cool about the boss fight here is that his left arm is broken. I guess maybe when he fought Manus or something happened, so he has to fight you right-handed, so he's not at his full potential. If Knight Artorias had been able to use both arms, he probably would have been unbeatable. This is me just teleporting back in order to buy the last remaining soul arrow, soul spear. I don't really need to buy like my 5th version of the heavy soul arrow and all that kind of stuff. That's just a waste of souls. But now I've got 4 crystal soul spears I can cast in a fight and 8 regular soul spears. So when I fight, Calamite and Manus, and also Gwen, I'll just be able to nuke motherfuckers. I don't know why I'm just standing here. I must have been grabbing a sip of water or taking an aspirin or something like that. I'm in a kind of a funky state because I was up super late last night as usual, but I was doing this really, really cool podcast about the Polish, by way of France, filmmaker Andrzej Zulawski, who's done just all he died earlier this year, but did all kinds of crazy motherfucking movies in the 70s and 80s. And it's one of my favorite podcasts I've ever prepared for. Whether or not it's one of my best episodes, you be the judge. But in terms of the actual movies that I got to watch, I'm a big fan of outrageous cinema. Quick interruption. These guys, they don't look like anything. They will tear your ass up, especially if they gang up on you. They're real quick. They're real hard to backstab. They drop that pitchfork if you want to be a pitchfork-wielding horror movie cosplayer. But just be careful with them. Don't take them for granted just because they look like they're nothing, but this is the DLC. They will tear your ass up. But even more threatening in this area are these giant golems or statues, whatever you want to call them. They hit hard as hell with these big giant hammers. They also do this slow uppercut where they rip their weapon through the ground and lift everything into the air, and that will shred you as well. You get in real trouble when you got a big giant slow statue creature combined with these little scarecrow things fighting you all at the same time. Then you got to be super, super careful. So my advice is don't run through this place because you can't really see them. They're all pretty well camouflaged. And all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I'm surrounded by like 6 guys. What the hell's going on? Just walk through this whole zone because there are a few traps and just bait them out as they go, and you should have no trouble. This is an elevator that we have to upgrade, activate on the other side. Quick break to swap out my batteries because you do not want to have low batteries and be playing Dark Souls. Because it'll get you good. Heaven help you if you're in the middle of a boss fight, or even just fighting like a little skeleton, and suddenly you try to swap out your batteries, because that's one thing that's great about Dark Souls. You can be level 100 and walking through the very first zone, and if you look away from the screen for a couple seconds, the crappiest mob in the game will still just beat your ass down. So that's what allows people to do these crazy soul level 1 full clears. That for me is just madness when people set themselves up for that kind of abuse. A soul level 1 clear is essentially when you play a deprived, if you start out as a knight or a sorcerer or whatever, you usually start a couple levels in and got a little bit of gear and like 1 spell. A deprived starts out at level 1 with no stats really assigned to anything. And then people just play the whole game through, which means your health is always going to be low as hell. You have no stats to scale with your damage, so you have to basically buff all your weapons with the raw buff. So you're basically just getting like the best base damage of the weapon possible. And it's just, that's for real good Dark Souls players. People who just don't make mistakes. Because in theory, if you know the movements of the mobs, and you know the movements of the bosses, and you know how it all goes, this is me getting in serious trouble because I've got 2 of these giant statue guys. This is what I was talking about, being careful about moving too far ahead. You can very quickly get overwhelmed, and I'm overwhelmed and having a little bit of a panic attack and just need to chug a lug and then I can get back in business. But yeah, if you know the movesets of bosses and all the strategies, it just takes longer if you're soul level 1. But in theory, you should be able to eventually get them down, but it just means no mistakes. Because you make mistakes, you're going to get one-shotted. So yeah, my hat's off to people who do that. I can't even watch those videos. They cause me so much anxiety. Also, I don't want to watch like people fight the bell gargoyles for 45 minutes because they're not doing enough damage to get them down. I sure as hell don't want to watch someone fight something awful like Calamite at soul level 1. I mean, Calamite is a legit challenge. He's probably the coolest dragon fight. And I just missed a piece of gear back there. That's one thing. When you watch these videos and then do commentary after the fact, I see mistakes that I make. And these statues, when they die, a lot of times they have a potential drop of Twinkling Titanite, which is a huge drop. But I missed it, and so I'm just going to have to live with it. At this point, I no longer need any mats for any of my gear. I mean, even if I just say, the Great Scythe, I was all excited about my Great Scythe, but one thing I never took into account is that the Great Scythe was only going to be efficient if I gave it a buff that scales with my intelligence. But the whole point of having the Great Scythe was to have a weapon that doesn't do magic damage, to have an alternative. So, but at this level, if I put a lightning or flame buff on the Great Scythe, the damage it does just can't even compare to my spell, so it kind of takes some of the fun out of it. The reason I had so much fun with the Great Scythe on my Dex build was because I had Dexterity 60. And if you have Dexterity 60 and you're wielding the Great Scythe, guess what? It's like the most ferociously disgusting, evil, demonic weapon ever conceived by a human being, which is why I had so much fun with it, because the moveset's amazing and the damage was considerable. But if the damage is no good, then I might as well just use my damn Enchanted Dagger, because my Enchanted Dagger is maxed out. And it's maxed out to scale perfectly with my intelligence, so that when I backstab people, boom, they go down in flames. So anyway, the Great Scythe, maybe I'll put a magic buff on it just for fun, because I do have another blue Titanite slab now, so I think I do. I could potentially max that one out as well. Although those blue Titanite chunks, I don't know if I have enough of those. I mean, those are real hard to come by unless I want to farm them. And I might have used up all the blue Titanite chunks that I'm going to find in the game. So we shall see what we shall see. But going back to what I was saying earlier about Zulawski, I'm a big fan of outrageous cinema. And by that I mean movies that are provocative, movies that are transgressive, movies that challenge conventional norms, basically movies that show you things that never in a million years would you see in a kind of a mainstream movie because of the fear of alienating huge chunks of the kind of casual movie-going audience. But if you watch tons and tons of movies, eventually you get tired of just eating vanilla all the time. Sometimes you want to see something strange and forbidden and taboo, and there are plenty of directors throughout history who have challenged societal norms with wildly original storytelling, whether it's sexual or violent or just disturbing environment or crazy politics or interesting takes on religion or whatever the case might be. I just like movies that really shock and awe me and kind of jolt me out of my complacency. And Andrzej Zulawski is definitely one of those guys. I didn't get into him until fairly recently. And it's kind of amazing that I've been saving this guy for so long whose movies are so naturally appeal to me. But the ones that I've seen so far are The Devil, The Important Thing Is to Love, On the Silver Globe, Possession, and Le Femme Publique. And anyway, the best thing you can do is later on today is just go to iTunes, check out Wrong Reel, and look for the episode on Andrzej Zulawski. And you'll hear a 2-hour rant with my buddy Martin Kessler, a filmmaker out of Toronto, about how much we love his stuff. Anywho, back to this area. I'm just, once again, just taking my time, teasing these guys out. The only real reason to do a full exploration of this zone is there are a few Titanite lizards if you still need some mats. There is an armor set, the Guardian set I believe it's called, where you basically look like that guy. So if you want to look like a big giant hammer-wielding statue of death person, you can find all the pieces around here, but they are heavy as hell, so don't put it on unless you're planning on just walking everywhere and just smashing people's faces in when they get close enough for you to swing. Yeah, so I'm not even going to bother to put it on, but it's Guardian leggings. Also, it's kind of cool just exploring this area because we have been, this is where I fought the giant cats before in the previous area, like, you know, when it's called like Dark Root Basin and all that kind of stuff. There's my buddy Calamite. He is such a cool, well-designed dragon. Look at that little like vision diamond thing in the middle of his face. We will encounter that diamond thing pretty soon, and it's no fun. He has this crazy thing where he like focuses his vision on you and raises you up in the air, and if you get stuck in that, it jacks up his damage for the for like, I don't know, 30 seconds or a minute or something like that. It makes him way harder, so you don't want to get caught in it. But yeah, Calamite's definitely a challenge. He will certainly kill me once as I get his timing down. There's a crystal lizard. I have my shield on, so I just panicked, couldn't get my spells off. So I'm gonna do a quick reset or log in and out and get that bastard. Yeah, that lizard's pretty easy to get. The next lizard is a classic trap because he starts running away from you. Like, oh my god, I'm gonna get the lizard's getting away. And if you chase him, he leads you right into a group of mobs, and it's like 2 statues and like 3 or 4 scarecrow people. And there's some scarecrow people that use these giant like scissors, which is just bizarre, but it reminds me a little bit of the Nihilists and Big Lebowski and that dream Lebowski has when he thinks about them coming to cut off his Johnson, and they're just coming after, kind of running in place with the giant scissors. That's basically what they are. So get that image out of your head, or at least try to, because when you're fighting them, you'll just be hearing, I'm going to cut off your Johnson. But yeah, I'm not necessarily the world's biggest fan of this zone, but here's the thing, is you got to get through it, but you got to unlock the shortcuts. There's 2 elevators that you have to unlock to make this zone more explorable, but you want to be super careful about all these little chasms and pits. They're teeny tiny holes and chasms and ledges all over the place that are real hard to see because of the camouflage of the zone. It's just yet another reason to walk through the zone. Don't run through the zone, because you don't want to get surrounded, and you don't want to fall off shit. So just explore it at your leisure, and you'll have a good time. Sorry about those. Drinking more agua. Somebody's going to need to teach me how to do long videos and podcasts by myself without basically getting like mucus and phlegm in the back of my throat. I know it's possible because people, like, you know, stand-up comedians, they'll talk for an hour, or politicians, they'll talk for however long. I mean, people do speak in public for lengthy periods of time without getting thirsty. I can't get through 5 fucking minutes of a YouTube video without feeling like I've gone out and run a goddamn marathon. But maybe that's just, I don't know, maybe I just need to stay more hydrated, or maybe I just talk like a moron. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I need to drink water while I'm doing these videos, or when I'm listening to the video after the fact, I can hear like the sticky mouth syndrome, which is just disgusting. All right, that's the trap. See how he's running away? He's running right toward them, and Dark Souls loves to do that. They bait you into running into certain death. So I'm just gonna log in and out, kill that piece of shit, and then just casually stroll through those guys and take them on at my leisure. Yeah, I should have swung with that. I don't know why I decided to waste 2 spells. Cause this is a pretty big zone. I have to be pretty economical with my spells in this zone. There's, you know, mobs all over the place, so that's why I'm using my dagger for a lot of the exchanges. I just know I'm gonna run low before I finish clearing this place out in full. But luckily, my spells are so powerful at this point. When they're just standing there, and I'm not worried about missing, I can pretty much 2-shot even the most powerful guys in the area. You just can't hang with my power. Yeah, I'm glad I got my intelligence maxed out pretty early on, so I got to at least enjoy a large part of the content of Dark Souls with a fully jacked up sorcerer. Okay, I mean, I can fine-tune with a little extra health or a little extra endurance or whatever, but I've designed this guy to be just a legit spellcaster. And yeah, I've gotten to experience, you know, probably 20% of the game with my spells just hitting like fucking Gandalf taking on the goddamn Balrog. Although, actually, come to think of it, in the book and in the movie, has Gandalf ever actually even cast a spell at the Balrog, or does he just whack him with Glamdring a whole bunch of times? I think he just whacks him with Glamdring. He uses the staff to help like shatter the bridge, but this is me just unlocking the elevator. You take this elevator down, you run across the bridge, you talk to this extremely cool looking NPC over here, And we're going to be stealing his armor set before the end of our playthrough, because once you've cleared the DLC, you can just kill this guy, take his clothes, and they look fucking awesome. My Dex build that I had on my 360 wore this set, and I was
Did you happen across Knight Artorias?
It looks almost like a character out of Bloodborne. And granted, I haven't played Bloodborne, but Bloodborne's got that kind of weird, slightly more modern. It's not like medieval. It's like almost like this kind of funky Victorian-looking thing. And so that's what this guy looks like. So this must be like the first taste of that world in Dark Souls. Let's do an entire environment based on this kind of aesthetic. But he sells some cool, useful stuff. But what he really has useful is just a beautiful looking set with that mask. So if you want to look like the character from V for Vendetta, that's how you do it. So unlocking the other elevator so I can come back down here. When I fight Artorias, I'm going to want to come back with full flasks and full spells. And so I'll be just running back to here. And you can run straight here from the previous bonfire, and all you have to do is dodge 1 or 2 mobs, and then you're good to go. So yeah, I recommend just going ahead and unlocking this as fast as humanly possible. Down below this bridge is an area that leads to Calamite. Before we can fight Calamite, first you have to make him fly down and kind of like be in the area. Then you have to find a special key, and the special key takes you to the top of this ladder where there's a blacksmith who's like a big giant, like blind giant, who has this huge, massive great bow, and he'll shoot Calamite and like wing him and get him down on the ground so that you can go down and fight Calamite. You can also cheese Calamite if you're a really, really brilliant archer and have awesome bow attacks or just really good at using a bow. You can like stand in an area and shoot him as he flies by. It's incredibly time-consuming and really annoying. And I mean, the whole fun of playing Dark Souls, this is me just showing the elevator that will come back from Manus' zone, which allows us to have a shortcut for fighting Manus in case we die, but that'll be a while before we unlock that. But the whole fun of playing Dark Souls is the gameplay, not clearing the content. It's not about, oh, I've cleared the content, I've got the gear, now I can move on to the next zone. It's like, no, enjoy fighting each and every mob, enjoy fighting each and every boss, because the action and the gameplay is the main draw of this game, so fight the bosses. Don't cheese them. Although, to be fair, on my first playthrough, I cheesed 2 bosses. I cheesed the first Hydra by shooting with a bow from the cliff, and I partially cheesed Manus by standing on this ledge and shooting arrows down on him. I will show how to do the cheese attack on Manus, but he's the second to last boss in the game, so just have fun with him. Because especially, that is redundant. I can say cuz or especially. What you can do with the Manus fight is you can summon Sif, the kick-ass wolf pup who's Artorias' buddy. Artorias and Sif were adventuring together, and when they got down to the abyss, something happened where they got in trouble, and so what Artorias did is he created a little like force field to protect his dog, and that's why later on in the future, Sif is so protective of Artorias' sword. That's kind of like, I think that's where Artorias is buried, so I don't know why we have to even fight Sif there, but anyway, we do fight Sif. But back in time, though, we have not fought Sif, and Sif is small, just a normal-sized dog at this point, so we can summon Sif for the fight. I think Sif is one of the coolest characters in all of Dark Souls lore. We definitely be using the puppy dog to help in the Manus fight. Because I'm not very good at the Manus fight, and I'm going to need all the help I can get. So there is another giant down here. I'm trying to do a plunge attack, and I can like hear him, but I can't find him, but he's wandering around, just not making it easy for me to engage. But I very rarely get a chance to do plunge attacks. There he is. See him off in the distance behind me. But when I run over here to look for him, this area is so damn camouflaged, I can't fucking find him. So, sorry, just distracted here. I couldn't find him when I was playing it. I'm actually looking now really, really aggressively at like all the different corners of the screen and to see where the hell this guy went. But he was just down here. But now he seems to be gone, so I don't know, it's too much effort, so I just say fuck it. But because they dropped Twinkling Titanite, they are worth killing. Even though I don't plan on upgrading any more gear, this is my outfit for this character, and I'm very, very pleased with it, even though it's probably not the strongest one that I could have come up with in the end. I just think if you don't look like a badass, you're playing Dark Souls incorrectly. There are plenty of gear sets that are awesome. They just look silly, but fashion's a very subjective thing. So also, some people, they could just be like a giant blue square and have just as much fun. But for me, I like a truly immersive RPG, whether it's Fallout 4 or Skyrim, whatever the case might be, customizing the look of my character. Maybe it wasn't a giant. Maybe it was that guy just walking on. Maybe he just looked like a giant in the shadow. He dead now. So yeah, the Homing Crystal Soul Mass, it hits so hard. It's got a lot of power. It's almost as powerful as a Soul Mass, and I can cast 10 of them. Granted, they disappear, and sometimes they miss, but then again, when I cast a Soul Spear or whatever, sometimes I miss too. You gotta run and jump over this. That's a hole that kills a lot of people, but it doesn't kill me because I am immortal. That's one of the last pieces of the Guardian set. I'm gonna go get one more piece just to finish up this area. I don't need it, but I am OCD and like completing zones in full. This is the area where in the future I will fight the first Hydra, way down below. It's interesting how they introduce time travel into a medieval fantasy inside, because usually time travel is kind of a sci-fi conceit. Although, when I was a kid, one of my favorite series of books of all time was the first 6 books in the Dragonlance series. And the first 3 was called Chronicles, and the second 3 was called Legends. And in Legends, Raceland, who's like my childhood hero, travels back in time to study sorcery as a student of Fiston Daedalus, I think is how his name is, who was like the greatest wizard in history. And so it did incorporate him, but I feel like when you introduce time travel into medieval fantasy, you do run the risk of kind of changing the tone. I got a little worried in the most recent season of Game of Thrones when they're showing the origin of Hodor getting his name. If you haven't watched Game of Thrones, spoiler alert, because I'm talking season 6. But how Bran looking back in time at the same time while he was controlling Hodor in the future to protect them from all the zombies that were attacking them, that Hodor inadvertently saw himself getting eaten alive by undead in the future and just had a total panic attack and started, kept screaming, hold the door, which turned into Hodor. But how Bran basically accidentally made Hodor into what he is by connecting this to. And at the time, I don't know if that's something that George R.R. Martin fully fleshed out in his books, because we have not seen the Winds of Winter yet. But I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't know if I need time travel in my Game of Thrones. But it was just a teeny little taste, so I feel like it kind of works. But going back to this game, I feel like the time travel here kind of works because you essentially are exploring one of the legends of Dark Souls. One of the legends is when Knight Artorias took on Manus. So it just allows you to witness firsthand these events, which is pretty cool. And then once Manus is dead, we will travel back to the future. Back to the future, baby. Robert Zemeckis, 1985. And we will take on Gwen, and the game will be over. So yeah, this video is just the first part of the DLC, this zone, followed by the Artorias fight. But I always forget to mention, whenever I talk about the DLC, I always talk about how it's got 3 main bosses. I always forget about the very first boss. You walk into the DLC and fight one of the coolest bosses in the game by far. I feel like a lot of people forget that guy even exists, and he's a really, really cool boss. The gameplay's awesome. He's a challenge. He looks incredible. But for whatever reason, people just never talk about him. I don't know why. But yeah, so the DLC's got 4 bosses, 4 legit bosses that I think are some of the best bosses by far in Dark Souls. I mean, down here is the path. It takes you down to where Calamit's going to fly through, but I'm just saving that. There's no reason to go down there yet. I always mess up the order a little bit. Basically, you need to go down there and get Calamite to do a fly through. But I don't even know if it's worth it doing that until I've got the key that I know unlocks the area to the guy who's going to shoot him down. But I just know that if you go up and talk to the giant before Calamite's done his first fly through, the option to have him shoot Calamite down is not available, because you need to see Calamite once, and he's like, oh, are you having trouble with the dragon? Allow me to shoot him down for you. This is me just checking to see if I've got enough souls to possibly pass a level before fighting Artorias, but I do not. I hate going into a boss fight when I've got a decent number of souls. At 19,000, if I were to die and then lose them, that's almost half a level at this point, and I just I hate to lose that progress. And in previous playthroughs, I definitely have lost souls plenty of times. It's just so annoying when you lose your souls. I think I've only lost my souls a few times in this playthrough. I think I lost them in the Crystal Cave or Crystal Forest area, whatever you want to call it. And I lost them a few times really early in the game. So I guess I've gotten off comparatively light for an overall Dark Souls walkthrough. But if you never lose your souls, you just have upgrades coming out of your butt. This is me just teleporting back to the main area to get the 20 flasks. It's kind of a way of not having to spend humanities to jack up bonfires. Why jack up bonfires to give me a whole bunch of flasks when I can just teleport in and out? Granted, you can't teleport in and out of all the bonfires, but it's gotten to the point now where everything's pretty close together, where I can always, it's always convenient to go back to Firelink, get my 20 flasks, and then do whatever I'm going to do. So I'll start, I think I'm already back up to like 10 humanities, in spite of having spent 30 to unlock my shortcut in Izalith. So take the shortcut down to Artorias. Now, Artorias can be a handful for melee characters because he has a point in the fight where he jacks himself up. That sounded almost sexual. Jacks himself up, not off, and he kind of gets covered in all this purple glop and becomes more powerful. But if you power attack him twice while he's doing his charge up, you'll stun him and you'll break the charge and he won't get powerful. And my previous playthrough, I was playing with a halberd and I kept doing like the big massive double swing to stop it, but I would miss it periodically. And if you miss it, then he immediately goes to work on you and you're really, really close to him. He starts to smack the fuck out of you. So I'm going to be using ranged attacks to defeat Artorias. One of the coolest looking bosses in the game. And you can get his armor set in Dark Souls 3, which looks bad as hell. I love his armor set in Dark Souls 3. It looks so fucking cool. He's real fast. He's got a bunch of different kinds of attacks, nearly all of which will hit me initially in the beginning of the fight. So you're going to get to see all of his prominent moves before this fight gets to its logical conclusion. But yeah, as you can see, he's wielding a sword right-handed because his left arm is hanging useless because he's Artorias is not at full power. At full power, he will be a handful. But he likes to do these kind of flip attacks. And if the first one hits you, he'll probably hit you with the second and the third, but you always want to be, you just want to always be moving sideways. Moving sideways, don't move backwards because he'll probably knock you down. And yeah, those attacks can be a little tough to dodge. You want to dodge him at the last second. He's just, he's hell on wheels. That double swing can nail you, but this is the one that really gets you. Hit you with that and bam, and just keeps adding insult to injury. Sometimes he'll do 3 in a row. And that's just no fun. So it's just tons and tons of vertical attacks. So just be aware that you're going to have to dodge vertical attacks. And he doesn't give you many opportunities to heal, because when you're trying to heal, he does that. It just makes you pay for it. He's like, nope, stay down, stay down. And I'm just, because I hadn't fought him in so long, it's just me just trying to get his timing back. And I'm like, all right, game on, motherfucker. I'm tired of you hitting me. I'm not allowed to abuse me like that anymore. I missed him with a lot of my spells. There he is charging up. Now, if I had been locked onto him, my Crystal Soul Spear probably would have stunned him and interrupted it. But, damn, my soulmate only wanted to hit him. But you really got to dodge his attacks, especially when he's fully charged. And if you just keep dodging and evading, it will eventually wear off. But yeah, Crystal Soul Spear, he just can't hit you. A few shots, he's done. Or just regular Soul Spear. That's the first time I've ever one-shotted him, so yay me, I must be getting... Something about doing these videos makes you focus in a way, which makes you actually play better, I've noticed. So I'm a big fan of recording my gameplay. Even if no one watches the videos, it's worth making the videos because it raises your game in a big way. You're like, oh shit, like I need to focus and get this done. You kind of don't space out. But yeah, when I played through on my Dex build, I struggled because it's the first time I'd ever encountered him. And when I played through my Faith build, I erroneously believed that because he's resistant to Faith magic, that I shouldn't cast any Faith magic. I had to just do pure melee. And he just mopped the floor with me again and again and again. And I was like using all my mats and finding crazy ways to heal. And I was just really struggling. And then finally I was like, fuck it, I'm throwing some goddamn lightning bolts at him. And as soon as I started throwing lightning bolts at him, I beat him my first try. And I was like, oh, so yeah. If you are a Pyromancer, Faith build, or Sorcerer, I recommend using your spells. Anyway, that's the tower that leads up to the big giant archer. We will be unlocking that area soon enough. But I'm going to have to clear the Ulasil Township first before we can do that. So, Ulaship Township... Ulaship... Well, I can't even speak now. Ulasil Township is one of the coolest areas in the game by far. Really, really fun to navigate. Got a lot of hidden walls and secret passages. Tons of PvP. This area right where I am right now is still an area rife with invasions because the arena no longer exists, but the arena's around the corner. So this is where people would hang out waiting for arena matches. But anyway, that is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. If you want to chat, give me a shout on Twitter at Colbrax. And yeah, my next video, I will be taking on Ulasil and hopefully Mr. Calamite. But thank you so much for watching. Talk to y'all soon.